Good morning, friends from Five Reasons. We are live to talk about the Marlins. The MLB trade deadline was yesterday, and we got caught up in the middle of the Miami Heat game, so we decided to wait it on a little bit and see what happened. The Miami Heat won, and we're all happy here in Miami. We beat the Grom and Giannis Antetokounmpo in the same day. So you Miami fans enjoy these type of moments because they don't come very often. I'm with David Eversole as always. David Fernandez. I have so many Davids in Five Reasons. With David, that's doing a great job in the website, covering the Marlins stuff and all that's going on with the Miami Marlins this season. And of course, we have to talk about the MLB deadline because we weren't sure that the Marlins were going to make some sort of move. And they did not only make one, they made two of them. And we brought one of the most important guys available in the trades in the trade deadlines, which was Starlin Marte. So uh, and we also didn't give up a lot of the young talent that we have. We gave up a couple of young players, but it wasn't that bad of a deal as maybe it happened in the past. So let's dive into those, and we'll talk a little bit about the Isan Diaz situation at the end of this short uh, report that we're going to do about the Marlins. So good morning, David. Thank you for joining us so early in the morning. I know you have a duty with our country later, and we appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Alejandro. It's great to be here. I mean, yesterday was a great day for Miami sports fans, right? I mean, the Marlins, not only did they make a big deal at the trade deadline, landing Starlin Marte, who's probably the best position player that was moved yesterday. So the Marlins landed him. They also landed a legacy prospect in Griffin Conine, right? So the son of Mr. Marlin, Jeff Conine,
Right.
he gets to come back home, although it's not official, right? He's the player to be named later. That his name was leaked, but we saw that. We saw the Marlins finally defeat Jacob DeGrom. Comeback victory yesterday against the Mets. It was a huge game for the Marlins because they were in the middle of a 4-game losing streak. The offense was sputtering. And their playoff position was kind of teetering there. And that win yesterday was huge, right? And then in the evening, obviously, we see the Miami Heat and the dominant effort from Jimmy Butler, and they get the win over Giannis, right? And when you think about it, the Bucks actually played really, really well. I mean, Middleton had a great game, Brook Lopez had a great game, and the Marlins. Listen to me, the Heat we're still able to pull that one out. And then on top of all of it, we've got the Dolphins training camp going, right, and Tua's
Yeah.
there, and so some exciting things happening here with South Florida sports, and obviously we're all over it here on the Five Reasons Sports Network.
Yeah, you can check the Miami Heat post game show. It's here in the YouTube channel. We're gonna post in the podcast later, the Five on the Floor podcast here, also, so you guys can get all that analysis. The Bucks missed so many free throws, and I mean that was maybe the difference. But you guys can listen to that a little later. Now let's talk about the Miami Marlins offense. You were saying that they were sputtering, right? They were struggling to actually come up with runs especially in those first two games of the race series. They just looked awful, I mean, they scored 7 runs after that when I guess they relaxed and they just started to play the game and just relax, and they often started to come up. And I have to be honest with you. When I saw that they were facing the Grom again, I was like, oh my god, no hitter alert here, because they were like hitting like getting like 3 or 4 base hits, and two of them were like Bertie just using his speed in the infield. So they were really struggling to get something going in the offensive side, and that's why they brought this guy that is right behind us right here, Starling Marte. So what's Starling Marte bringing to the table for the Marlins?
Listen, he is a veteran, right? He's a 9-year veteran with a really solid bat. Okay, so yesterday after the game, after the trades went through and all that, on the Marlins media Zoom call, President of Baseball Operations Michael Hill came on, and he described Marte as a solid, dependable, everyday bat. He sees Marte as a middle of the order guy who could support Corey Dickerson and Brian Anderson and Jesus Aguilar when he's back from his back issues, right? And Marte has been really, really good for the Diamondbacks, even though the Diamondbacks haven't been all that good here recently. This season in 2020, he's hitting 311. He has 8 doubles, a triple, 2 homers, 14 RBI, and 5 steals. Um, Marte is a one-time All-Star. He landed that berth in when he was with Pittsburgh in 2016. He's a 2-time Gold Glover. Career 288 batting average. He's the only player in MLB to have at least 20 stolen bases in each of the last 7 seasons. He's fast. He's aggressive. Okay, he's one of 2 players, the other one being Jose Altuve, to hit over 100 homers and have over 200 stolen bases over the last 7 seasons. And if you think about it, he's the only one that's doing that without actually cheating. So, that's good, right? Um,
Oh my God! Here you go. Thank you, Astros fans, for watching this.
yeah. So, Marte is he's a major addition to this lineup. Now, we thought about that being true with VR when he came in. We were a little bit frustrated with his performance, right? A little bit reckless, in the batter's box on the base pass. The good thing about Marte, his OPS is 827. That would lead the Marlins right now if he were on this team. Now, we have Miguel Rojas with a higher OPS. We have Garrett Cooper with a higher OPS, but both of those guys have played far fewer games. Marte has played all 30 games. 35 games actually for the Diamondbacks. The Marlins have only played 30 games. Rojas has played 14. Cooper has played 6. So, Marte, if he plays everything, he actually could end up with 65 games played in a 60-game season, which is kind of interesting. But he's a dependable bat, right? He's hitting really well against left-handed pitching. He's hitting 379 against lefties with a 920 OPS. We've really struggled against lefties, so we got an upgrade there, right? He hits well with runners in scoring position. He's hitting 300 with runners in scoring position, which is something that's been, again, an issue in the past for this club, particularly over the last few weeks, right? And the best thing is this isn't a 30-day rental. This isn't something that, the Marlins gave up prospects, right? Somebody with potential like Humberto Mejia, somebody obviously who we've seen succeed in the past, and Caleb Smith. We're not giving up that pitching just for a 30-day rental. Mike Hill said specifically that,
They have a team option, right?
yeah, they have the team option. He says that I don't think you give up what we gave up for a 30-day rental. So they have a team option for next year, which means Marte is going to be around not only to end this season, but also through next season.
Yeah, and that's important because the Marlins need more offense, especially against lefties. I was checking the stats for the entire league, for entire MLB, and the Marlins are among the worst when facing lefties, and that's probably something that we need to fix right away. And Starlin Marte is going to help a lot with that. And you were mentioning the people that left, right? Caleb Smith, Humberto Mejia. We saw him making his MLB debut this year. Who was the other guy?
So the other guy, it's technically, again, a player to be named later. Reports have leaked that it is a left-handed reliever
Julio
named
Diaz.
Julio Frias.
Yeah.
He's in low A ball, 22 years old. He's got a power arm, but again, he's 22 and he was only in low A ball. So
Yeah. That tells you something, right?
right.
Okay. So and by the way, I want to say that I've seen Jose Altuve hit all over the place, and he can hit without getting the signs. But he did get help. Just
He did.
saying that because I saw him coming up in Venezuela playing for when he was a little boy, and he can hit. He's having a rough season like a lot of other players. Coming back to the Marlins real fast. Okay, Caleb Smith was, I mean, he was one of the pitchers that got COVID, so he couldn't actually get to pitch with the Marlins this year. And he had a good couple of good months, the first 2 months last season, but after that, when the injuries and all the things came up, he wasn't that pitcher. So I'm actually glad they kind of got rid of him when he still has some value, because I thought maybe we could, especially with the type of talent that we have now, the young talent we have in the pitching staff. I don't know if, I mean, Caleb was probably going to be thrown there again in the mix, maybe as a fifth starter, fourth starter. But I mean, I think looking to the future, he wasn't going to be part of that Marlins team that is supposed to be fighting for the playoffs next season, right?
Right.
So
Listen, 100%. I mean, Caleb Smith, he came over with Garrett Cooper from the Yankees when they traded Mike King over there, right? And with the Marlins over the last couple of years, he was 15-17 with a 4.39 ERA. But the problem is, as you mentioned, injuries, right? He landed on the 60-day IL in 2018 with left shoulder issues. In 2019, he missed time with the hip injury. I mean, this year, obviously, the COVID stuff. I mean, you can't blame you. I mean, you can't really blame injuries on anybody, right? But the unfortunate reality is, yes, we saw some great potential from Caleb Smith, but he was never able to sort of make it all the way through a single season. And the other thing too, as you mentioned, there is a ton of young, talented arms coming through this system, and we see it. They're knocking on the door. They're busting the door open. We saw it with Sixto Sanchez. He's not going anywhere. He's going to stay in the rotation. Caleb Smith, at 29 years old, is 5 years older than the oldest one of these guys, right? So Sandy, I think, is the oldest one at 24. So that window there, unfortunately for Smith, it doesn't line up with the other ones, right? So he was going to be around. He would have been useful, especially here in September with all of the doubleheaders that we have coming up. But you're right. You flip a piece like this. You attach a potential nice piece with Humberto Mejia to get Marte. Yes. Do you hate to see guys like that go? Of course you do, right? But the reality is these guys weren't going to be in the best version of the Marlins starting rotation. Mejia had potential, right? He flashed it in his 3 starts. He was okay, right? But the reality is he probably would have ended up in the bullpen in the long run, considering all of the other arms that we have coming through. I mean, look at what Trevor Rogers did yesterday. He was awesome. Sixto's been awesome. And then even behind those guys, we have Edward Cabrera, who's yet to get to the majors. We have Braxton Garrett. They drafted
Guzman too.
Yeah. I mean, Guzman. We have Max Meyer, who was drafted this year. So there are so many arms in this system coming that losing a guy like Caleb Smith, losing a guy like Humberto Mejia, while you kind of hate to see them go, you can understand it because the Marlins were dealing from a position of depth, from a position of strength, right? And that allowed them to get a solid bat for the middle of this order, which is really what we needed. Our starting pitching was okay this year. We need offense.
Yeah, we need offense. We've been struggling, and it's just not something from this year. It's been in the last couple of years. It's been hard for the Marlins to actually have a lot of offense going on. I mean, we let go Stanton, Yelich, and Ozuna, guys that were very productive for the Marlins, and it's been hard for them to actually. We're not gonna get that type of production, but get something going on, something else going on from the outfielders. We have a message here from Lafayette Fuel. Jonathan Villar is not a good infielder. On 5 occasions in 30 games, he fumbled the ball and made errors. And let's talk about Jonathan Villar because I got to see him. I mean, the last game I watched from Villar wasn't a good one. Last Sunday, he made an error, like our friend says. He didn't run 100% a ground ball that he could have been safe on first. And I was like, there's probably something going on in his head. He's a good player. He's a versatile player. He plays center field. He plays shortstop. He plays second base. He was there for the Marlins when the Marlins needed a player that could play different positions because we were missing so many starting guys, right? Starting players that got COVID and they have to be just thrown or put away for a couple of weeks. And Jonathan Villar was there. And at the end of the day, he didn't hit the way we were expecting, but he was useful somehow because he was there patching so many holes and helping the team in so many ways. And I don't know if that in the long run affected him while he was hitting because he wasn't playing a single position. He was just all over the place again. And I mean, I'm sad watching him leave, especially so fast. We only enjoyed him for a month. And I think he was one of the best guys that we brought before this the season started. And I was very excited with Villar. I thought he was going to be maybe a 1 or 2 holder in the lineup and always being constantly on the base path, and that just didn't happen. And I mean, I don't know what's your feeling about the Villar move to the Blue Jays, who we're facing later tonight here at Marlins Park.
Yeah, listen, VR actually flew home with the Marlins from New York. He was on the team plane, even though he wasn't part of the team anymore, So it was a nice move by the Marlins to bring him home instead of making him like catch a commercial flight and all that stuff. But listen, obviously we were very excited when the Marlins landed VR this offseason because we saw the potential. Some people have called him more of a fantasy player with numbers and things like that, versus somebody who really affects games. And he was incredibly frustrating to watch at times because he was a little reckless, right? He was a little reckless at the plate, right? Swinging. Swinging at first pitches all the time, taking bad strikeouts, right? And he was also reckless on the base pass. He lead the NL in stolen bases? Yes, he had 9, but he also led the whole league in caught stealing with 5, and that's in addition to getting picked off a handful of times, right? So when you have a guy who's stealing a bag at like a 64% clip, that's not good enough, not for this offense, right? We needed guys on base regularly, and he just wasn't able to do that. He ultimately hit 259 for the Marlins. He only had a 315 on base percentage. And we were hoping for more, right? And we had seen him do more with Baltimore. And obviously he's an incredibly talented player. And as you said, his versatility became incredibly useful for this club once the COVID outbreak, took hold, right? The original plan was to have him in center field, and we saw that a little bit, and it didn't work. He couldn't really defend all that well in center field.
Well, he's not a center fielder.
Right, of course not. Right, it was a tough expectation for him, and then moving him to the infield when those openings occurred, it helped, but he wasn't a great defender. I mean, he wasn't terrible, but he wasn't great, and he didn't seem to fit with what the Marlins were hoping to do, from a team and an offensive perspective, right? And listen, they sent him to Toronto, and they got back. Technically, it's still a player to be named later, but it's leaked that it's Griffin Conine, right? Son of Jeff Conine, Mr. Marlin. The Marlins actually drafted Conine out of high school. He went to high school locally here in Fort Lauderdale, Pinecrest High School in Fort Lauderdale. They drafted him out of high school. He didn't sign with the Marlins. He went to Duke. He played well at Duke. He was drafted in the second round in 2018 by the Blue Jays with pick number 52. The Marlins actually held pick number 53, and most people assumed that they would have chosen Conine at that point. So they've wanted Conine for a really long time. He's got solid numbers. He was suspended going into last season for testing positive for Ritalin, but he ended up having a pretty good season down there in A ball for them. He hit over 280, hit 22 homers, 64 RBI. He's got a ton of power as a left-handed bat. The one thing that goes against Conine is his strikeout rate. He strikes out probably way more than you want him to. He had 125 strikeouts in almost 350 plate appearances, right? So the rate is way too high, and hopefully that's something that he can work on. But he's got a great arm defensively. He's 23 years old, 22 or 23, so a little on the older end, but he's still at least a year or two away from really affecting, the major league level. You look at what happened for the Marlins. They improved the major league roster, and then, they added depth to the minor league system without really losing any of their top end prospects, right? You understood moving off of Caleb Smith. You hate to see somebody like Mejia go, but somebody had to go, right? And then obviously Julio Frias, we don't know what he's going to be, but it didn't look like he was going to be a frontline prospect anyway, right? And then moving forward, they're able to deal Jonathan Villar because news has broke recently that Isan Diaz is trying to opt back in, or he has sort of opted back in. He's applied for reinstatement. He's waiting for that approval. And Mike Hill said yesterday on the Zoom call that Diaz is actually already in Jupiter, working out with the team, trying to get up to speed as quickly as he can. So losing our second baseman in VR, he might very well get replaced by Isan Diaz here in the next, few days or weeks or whatever. And then in the meantime, John Birdie can play second base. They could call Eddie Alvarez back up. He could play second base. So the Marlins have some options there moving forward.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully we have Isan Diaz back and he can hit. The hard thing here is that we have a month left, and we can talk a little bit about it real fast before you go. The Marlins are 15-15, so we are straight in the half point of the season, of this short season. The Marlins are in a playoff spot at this moment. they're second in the NL East, and they're not that far away from the Braves either. So they can even make a run. And I thought that was going to happen when they came here to Marlins Park, and it's been a struggle here at home. They're 1-8. It's unbelievable how good they played out of here and how bad they can't hit here in Marlins Park. But that's going to change tonight. But going forward, what do you think is what do you expect from this team now in the second half of the season?
Listen, these final 15 or 30 games rather are huge, right? Now, 17 of the final 30 are in Marlins Park, so they need to get their offense going, right? They've got two tonight, or two. The next two are against the Blue Jays here in Miami, and then moving forward, they have a ton of games against teams that are chasing them, right? So they have 7 games against the Phillies over 5 days, and the Phillies are literally right there with the Marlins.
Yes.
Okay? So if the Marlins can take that series, right? If they can win 4 out of the 7 or 5 out of the 7, they will sort of further secure their playoff spot. Then they have an additional 5 games left against the Nationals, who are currently at the at the bottom.
Yeah.
But again, they're chasing the Marlins, and we saw what the Nationals did last year, kind of surging towards the end of the year. So they've got 12 huge games against those two guys, right? They also have games against the Braves, who have had our number so far this season, right? And then they're mixed in there, we've got a series with the Red Sox, who aren't great, and then obviously we finish with the New York Yankees, who, while they started really hot, they've kind of been sputtering lately. So what that means is the Marlins have a real opportunity here to end their playoff drought. It's been 17 years since they made it to the playoffs, right? 2003 was the last time the Marlins were in the playoffs. We know obviously what happened that year, okay? Maybe that magic could happen. Think about this. If the playoffs started today, the Marlins would play the Cubs, who they met in 2003. Right? And we just landed Jeff Conine, who was part of
there you go.
Was part of this whole thing, right? So there's some interesting things in play here for the Marlins. Obviously, they have to win. Obviously, they have to get the offense going, right? But they have a real opportunity here. They're playing meaningful baseball in September, which is something that we haven't been able to say for a really long time. Garrett Cooper said yesterday that it's fun. Being in the pennant race is fun. And Mattingly's talked about being in the pennant race the entire season. And they're right in the thick of it. They're currently holding a playoff spot. And really, when you think about what's happening with their schedule, that's the playoffs. They have their sort of playoff destiny, quote unquote, in their own hands. If they can win each of these series moving forward, and obviously that's a tall task considering, but if they can win each of these series, they're getting in the playoffs, right? The NL as a whole, they don't have a ton of teams like running away with it. The Dodgers are obviously great. The Braves are doing really, really well. The Padres are doing well, but everybody else is kind of bunched there in the middle. The Marlins are in 500 and they're squarely in the playoff race. So if they can continue to play, if they can get a game or two over 500, you'll feel even more comfortable, right? If they can push it to like 3 or 4 or 5 games over 500, even more so, they're in. If they can get to 5 games over 500, they're in. All right. So it's an important series of games coming up for the Marlins here over the course of the next month.
Yeah, and we all know what happens every time the Marlins get to the playoffs. We don't go to the playoffs just to go to the playoffs. We go all the way to the title, right? It's happened in the last 2 times, the only 2 times that the Marlins have been there, 97 and then in 03. Okay, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Tonight we have Eliezer Hernandez pitching against the Blue Jays. Tomorrow we have Sixto Sanchez again against the Blue Jays, and we're gonna be doing something on Sixto because he's been great, and we're gonna be doing something maybe during the game or right after the game to talk a little bit about the Sixto Sanchez start tomorrow against the Blue Jays. So thank you guys for joining us this morning so early to talk about the Marlins. It's always exciting to start your day talking about a team that's winning, that it's in the playoff race, in the pennant race too in the National League East. Thank you, David, for joining us, and let's go and have a great day today.
Thanks, Alejandro. Go Marlins.
Go Marlins.